Ever tried to fit your phone in a woman's front pocket and wondered if you were using it wrong? Spoiler alert, you're not. The pockets are just the problem. So what exactly is a pocket? That seems obvious. But stick with me here. This gets interesting. A pocket is a small bag or compartment that's either sewn into or attached to a garment. The word pocket comes from the Old Northern French word poke, meaning bag or pouch. In its earliest form, pockets weren't actually part of clothing at all. They were separate accessories that people tied around their waists, hidden beneath outer layers. We've always needed somewhere to stash our things. Let's start with one of the earliest known examples of a pocket system. Ötzi, the famous 5,300-year-old ice mummy discovered in the Alps in 1991, wore a small pouch secured around his waist. Inside, a collection of small tools, including a scraper, drill, flint flake, and a dried fungus believed to have been used as tinder for starting fires. This wasn't a sewn-in pocket, but rather a precursor, a belt pouch that served the same essential function. Ancient Romans didn't have pockets in their togas either. Can you imagine trying to sew a pocket into a toga? But they did carry small pouches called loculi, dangling from their belts for personal items and valuables. During the Middle Ages, both men and women used pouches fastened to their belts, called almoner bags, often used to carry alms for the poor, hence the name, and personal items. These bags were sometimes elaborately decorated to show off wealth and status. For centuries, pockets as we know them today didn't exist in clothing. Instead, from the medieval period through the 18th century, people, particularly women, wore separate pockets tied around their waists with string or ribbon. These tie-on pockets were essentially small fabric bags with a slit opening at the top. Women would wear them under their petticoats and access them through slits in their outer garments. Think of them as the original fanny packs, just hidden under yards and yards of fabric. These pockets could be quite large and were used to carry all sorts of personal items: money, keys, sewing tools, food, a small book, and even a flask. They were often beautifully embroidered, despite being hidden from view most of the time. After all, just because no one else could see your pockets doesn't mean you couldn't enjoy their beauty yourself when you were getting dressed. What's particularly interesting about these tie-on pockets is that they were among the few places where a woman could maintain privacy and autonomy from her husband. A woman's pockets were genuinely her own, a place to keep her money, her letters, her secrets. But what happened next would change everything. In the 1790s, the French Revolution didn't just transform politics. It also transformed how women carried their belongings, and pockets would never be the same. So, we've talked about these wonderful, functional tie-on pockets that women relied on for centuries. They were practical, spacious, and genuinely useful. So naturally, what happened next? They vanished. Enter the French Revolution. You might think a revolution all about liberty, equality, and fraternity would celebrate women's freedom, including the freedom to carry their own stuff. But fashion had other ideas. In the 1790s, as revolutionary fervor swept through France, women's fashion underwent a radical transformation. The new empire silhouette became the height of fashion. Think high waistlines directly under the bust, flowing straight down in a column shape, often in sheer fabrics. It was elegant. It was fashionable. It was also completely incompatible with pockets. Here's the thing. You can't sew functional pockets into a garment that clings to the body like this. Pockets would create unsightly bulges. They'd ruin the smooth, streamlined silhouette that designers wanted. So pockets didn't just disappear from women's clothing. They were deliberately eliminated. And here's where it gets darker. Historians have noted something fascinating. While men's pockets became more integrated and more functional during this same period, women's were being stripped away. The solution? Women were expected to carry a small reticule, a fancy little drawstring bag, often no bigger than your hand, that dangled from the wrist. or was held in the hand? Think about that for a second. A man could carry his entire life in his pockets. A woman was given a tiny decorative bag. And this wasn't a temporary fashion trend. This silhouette stuck around for decades. Pockets didn't return to women's clothing in any meaningful way for over a century. So the French Revolution, for all its talk of freedom, actually locked women out of the practical, autonomous world that pockets represented. It's a perfect example of how fashion, which we often think of as frivolous or separate from politics, is actually deeply political. So we've covered the fascinating early history of pockets. Now it's time to get to what you're probably all wondering about. Why do men's clothes have so many functional pockets, while women are stuck with fake pockets or none at all? This isn't just a modern complaint. It turns out the gender pocket divide has deep historical roots. In the late 18th century, something remarkable happened. Men's fashion underwent a dramatic transformation. External pouches were eliminated, and integrated pockets became standard. Men could now carry their personal items discreetly within their garments. Pretty convenient, right? But here's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean infuriating if you've ever tried to fit anything in a woman's pocket. While men gained these integrated pockets, women's fashion moved in the opposite direction. Women were expected to continue using separate pouches or small decorative bags. These eventually evolved into what we now know as purses or handbags. But here's where it gets genuinely troubling. By the late 1800s, many believed that allowing women to have pockets would actually threaten social order. I'm not making this up. The reasoning was that pockets would give women independence and privacy. Dangerous concepts in a patriarchal society that preferred women to be dependent on men. Heaven forbid a woman might carry her own money or private correspondence. This pocket inequality wasn't just about fashion, it reflected deeper societal attitudes about gender roles. Men's clothing was designed for utility and function because men were expected to be active in the public sphere. Women, confined primarily to domestic roles, apparently didn't need practical clothing features. One fashion historian put it perfectly: pockets are political. They represent freedom, independence, and agency, precisely what society often tried to deny women. The absence of pockets in women's clothing was a form of control, limiting what women could carry and, by extension, where they could go and what they could do. Christian Dior didn't help matters when he famously declared in 1954, "Men have pockets to keep things in, women for decoration." Thanks for that, Christian. Really helpful. Fast forward to today, and while much has changed, the pocket inequality persists. Studies show that women's pockets are still significantly smaller than men's. On average, 48% shorter and 6.5% narrower. Anyone who's tried to fit a modern smartphone into a woman's front pocket knows this struggle all too well. Some designers argue that pockets ruin the clean lines of women's clothing, or that women prefer to use purses anyway. But surveys consistently show that women want functional pockets just as much as men do. The difference: women haven't historically been the ones designing clothing. The good news is that things are slowly changing. More women are entering the fashion design industry, and many brands are responding to consumer demand by adding functional pockets to women's clothing. Specialized companies have even emerged that make pocket equality their mission. So where are we headed? The pocket revolution is gaining momentum. Social media campaigns like #GiveMePockets have brought attention to the issue, and there's growing recognition that practical clothing shouldn't be gendered. Some innovative designers are exploring new pocket placements and styles that work with a range of garment types. Others are creating adaptable designs that let wearers customize their pocket configuration to suit their needs. And it's not just about women's clothing anymore. As our understanding of gender becomes more fluid, there's increasing interest in designing practical pockets for all body types and style preferences, regardless of gender identity. So the next time you slip your phone, wallet, keys, and whatever else into your pockets, or struggle to do so, remember that you're participating in a centuries-old story about independence, practicality, and yes, even politics. The humble pocket has a lot more to say than you might think. Thank you for watching another episode of Everyday Nuggets. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe for more videos. If you have suggestions for other everyday things you'd like to know about, please leave them in the comments below. Stay curious,